So here we are at 31 of December, almost 2018. It's morning here in Amsterdam. And what do we do today? We talk about The Last Jedi. I went yesterday to see the movie. I waited this long because I was busy. And I tried in every capacity to stay away from spoilers and so on. I remember even singing to myself while people yesterday came out of the room of the theater because they were explaining. There was this girl like really loudly explaining to her father the ending, and I was like la 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 la. I'm like, come on, I waited this long, and then this girl, she started to talk just on her way out. But anyway, I managed not to hear. I sat down and I started to watch the movie, and what do I think? Well, let's start with the positive things. This is probably the best looking Star Wars movie ever made. It looks beautiful. I recently watched also Blade Runner. It reminded me of the old efforts like, Stanley Kubrick, Tarkovsky, where photography really means, and the combination between the CGI and the real effect, normal effect, they really were blended really well. Truly enjoyable. Every scene is decorated, the sets and the angles and the coloring. It's just stunning. That alone, I really enjoyed the movie. A great effort, really the best one. And the sound also were great. If go in a good cinema, you will see that you will enjoy all the little details which, if you're trained, I enjoy sound, so I pay attention to that more. But you will enjoy it even if you don't know much about sound engineering, because it's done really really well. So, and that basically hands the positive things about this movie. That's it. That's all. If you just go there and enjoy the fact, then it's fine. And in fact, that's what I thought. I thought if I didn't know anything about the previous trilogy, the previous movies, this would have been a much better experience to enjoy, because the story is set up in a way that it's action, slow action, also the chase in space with the rebel. And every detail of the story comes in second place. That's really what stems out the most out of this movie. All the plots and subplots, they just don't work, and it was a true disappointment. First of all, you start with Luke Skywalker on the island, meets Rey, and the first thing he does is this sort of skit. He gets the lightsaber, he looks at it for a second, and you think it's a moment full of pathos, of feeling, and just a second after he throws it behind his back to signaling that he's over with it, this whole thing, Jedi crap. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning how they destroyed basically the whole trilogy, the meaning of the previous movies. You start with Rey being on this place, and Luke Skywalker being a sort of a coward that he withdrew from society, from everything, just to die on this island. Yet he left a map in the previous movie because apparently he wanted to be found, but he wanted to be found so that he could tell somebody that he wanted to die on that island, apparently. And this is just the beginning of many, many out of place comedy skit and one-liner that most of the time they just fail because they're off by a little second or a split second. They're just off. They always find this sort of comic relief. It's always a little bit too forced, and most of the time it doesn't really work. I didn't really enjoy it. Sometimes gives you a giggle, but it was just too much. Like at the beginning, the Bo teasing and the General Hawks kind of thing, like a phone call prank to buy time for whatever they're doing in the Rebel ship, is just a little bit too much. A little bit too much Avengers, Marvel kind of comedy type. And they're trying to do that kind of thing everywhere now in movies, like combination of comedy with being serious. But in this movie, just most of the time failed. I didn't really like it. It just made the character worse, which is a pity, considering the heritage of the previous trilogy. Then you continue go on and you realize that everything you've seen in The Force Awakens, all the setup of the character of Finn and Rey, that there is this tension and almost already passionate, intense love between the two characters, here just disappears. In fact, the first thing you see that it's ridiculous. The first thing you see, Finn wakes up from his coma, and the Bo sees him again, and he runs towards Finn, and he tells him like, "Man, we're gonna get rid of this like oozing thing." He has this sort of jacket on with tubes and everything, and he's losing fluids, makes him look like ridiculous. But still, the first thing Finn asks Bo is, "Where is Rey?" To enforce that kind of like relationship connection from the first movie, and that's it. That's basically it. Because for the rest of the movie, what you see actually it's completely the opposite. You see that Finn goes off with this new character, which we don't exactly know why it's there. This Sarah character that at the end seems to have developed a relationship with Finn and love out of just doing a sort of subplot together. And Finn basically tries to kill himself, and he gets saved at the last moment from Sarah, avoiding him to run straight into the ram cannon of the New Order. And that whole part also very confusing. I just don't understand it. But the most important thing was that the first movie, they set up a lot of things to be great in the second, and none of that came true. The sort of relationship between Finn and Rey fades. Rey seems more connected to Kylo Ren, and you see through the movie that Snoke was sort of connecting the two minds, and they see each other in holographic fashion, one standing in one place, the other on the island, and they keep having communication, and then we realize that it was Snoke that kept their mind connected. But then we see also that there is sort of sensual romantic tension between the two, creating a sort of a new direction for the love story, bromance, whatever. And it's strange because in the first movie it seems like the connection between the two friends or whatever was so strong, and now it's taking on a totally different direction. It seems that the two directors, they're trying, like the one guy, J.J. Abrams, tried to do something with that movie, and then this guy takes over and it basically it's like, no, I'm not gonna go for that, and he's trying to do his own thing, but destroying everything in the process. And I'm not saying that taking chances it's it's wrong. Actually, it's good. It's good too that they took so many chances in some ways, but they did it all the wrong ways because they try to mix nostalgia with the new. And I understand that the franchise wants to move forward and capitalize on something that it's been famous for so long and making money and making another 15 years of movies. But at the same time, they're truly killing the old and stripping it off of the value that it had until now. You see Luke Skywalker going off in like in a sort of lukewarm kind of way. It's ridiculous. Luke is portrayed. This is probably the thing that bothers me the most about the movie, and it's like they already did that with the Force Awakens, portraying Han Solo as a scumbag again that runs off from his wife and kid, and he starts to be like a smuggler again, and they just kill him off, basically sending him off as a character in the worst possible way, destroying everything that he achieved in the previous trilogy and destroying the character that is beloved, that has been beloved for so many decades. That really bothered me and showed very little understanding of the value of the first trilogy and the first the first efforts from the artist, from Lucas and all the other people who worked on those movies, or what they achieved. They basically took those achievements away by making this movie. And Luke Skywalker goes off the same fashion. He's on this island, he wants to die there, he never gets to leave the island. We see this wonderful, interesting final scene where he literally, at least when the scene is happening, we believe he's there, and he goes to say basically hi for the last time to his sister Leia at the rebel base on this salt planet, and then he literally walks out in front of this huge army which is standing there at the door, ready to kill the last remains of the rebels. And he stands out and he walks out and he's standing there. I love the scene taken from below, the small guy in front of all those machines and cannons. It's very powerful, and then it just melts away lukewarmly into nothing. There is a little bit of fighting scene between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker. Even the previous scene where they shoot the hell out of everything they got on Luke Skywalker, and you know, you really feel pumped because you think like, wow, this guy is really powerful. And then, you know, Kylo Ren comes down and he confronts him, and we see a little nice action like Matrix style. There is some references actually there, and I explain more. But then we realize he's an hologram. It's a sort of like astral projection. He's meditating on the island, and it's so powerful that his ghost can literally like withstand the force of the lightsaber from the other guy. But then, you know, like Kylo slams him, and we see that goes through, and we realize it's an astral projection. And that moment you realize takes everything away from the mythical figure of Luke Skywalker. He's supposed to be the most powerful Jedi. He's supposed to be able to lift whatever, you know, like with the force that flows through him. Yet he's just an astral projection, and they missed the chance to send him off in a grand way. I mean, if you draw the parallel to the Matrix, for instance, like the third Matrix, when Neo is blind and is in the ship with the Trinity, and they're flying straight into these barriers of machines, you know, and I'm sure that the Matrix took inspiration with this energy force thing from Star Wars. And here we see that The Last Jedi somehow took inspiration, you know, from the Matrix, probably, in this last scene where Luke Skywalker is standing in front of this huge army and is ready to confront them. But in the Matrix, there is the level of epicness. It's reached when Neo just imposes his hands and is blind, and he destroys all of those ships, like in this incredible move, which we don't expect, and really shows how powerful it is even in the real world. And that does a lot to the movie, that you go like, yes, that's what you're supposed to do. This is what a good blockbuster is supposed to do, depicting a hero. It doesn't matter if it's female or male. They did really a good job there. And I was hoping they would do the same for Luke Skywalker, but they don't. And they take that away from him by showing that he's just an hologram, and the action is too little. Too late. We were waiting for Luke just to show how powerful it is, and in the end, he's just doing this little like lightsaber scene, just a second, and then that's it. And then we realized it was just to buy some time to the rebel, which they were fleeing from the back of the cave towards Rey somewhere else, and they escape. But they did the same with Princess Leia. This character. Unfortunately, in the real life, Carrie Fisher died, so we will not get to see her again, unfortunately. But they also misused the chance of using her character, the true first, you know, like female character that we see that female are kick-ass in a movie 40 years ago plus, and we wanted to see her kicking ass again. But we don't. We never get to see her full potential. Obi-Wan Kenobi says, you know, in the previous movie that she's even more powerful, or Yoda, she says even more powerful than Luke Skywalker. We never get to see that. We just get to see that she's floating into space because she was blown away when she was attacked on the rebel ship. She's into space, almost dying, freezing, but she can withstand staying in space for a few minutes. And she wakes up and literally flies off like a caped superhero back into the ship, and she goes into a coma for a couple of hours and wakes up. And those are just probably the biggest mistakes of this movie. They destroyed what was beautiful about the characters of the previous trilogy in order to create new characters, which they're actually failing to be that intricate and interesting. Finn was more interesting in the previous movie than in this one. Rey, the same thing. We see all the time that they play with this idea of she can turn to the dark side, yes or no, yes or no. And the same thing goes with Kylo Ren. I never seen a more confused character in any other movie. This guy literally changes his mind every second. Like he's literally a psychopath, which doesn't know what side standing. He doesn't know where he has to stand. And another thing about the villains in this movie, like the guy Snook, that in the previous movie we got to know that he's supposed to be super bad, an incredible villain, and more powerful than the Emperor, but yet you see that there is the Disney touch. The guy doesn't look that bad in the flesh. He looks like a little bit of a zombie, but you see the Disney touch. They made him friendly. The eyes are sort of soft and the eyebrows, so not to scare the kids. And at the end, we get to meet for the first time this character, and he dies off right away. It's killed. We never get to see the backstory. We don't know where he comes from. We never get to see his power, his strength, maybe a possible confrontation with Luke Skywalker. That would have been nice. I was expecting this movie to be epic and to pay the right tribute to those wonderful characters that we loved. I understand you want to create a new trilogy, but pay tribute to the old in the right way. You would have won the old fan and the new fan by doing that. Luke Skywalker got to reprise his character, like Mark Hamill got to reprise his character, but they just send him off in the worst possible way. He's having this astral projection fight for a moment, and then you see at the end of the movie that he's disappearing on the stone, like Obi-Wan Kenobi did in the first movie, hinting that he died and he transcended his body. And that's it. So we know probably we're gonna get to see Luke in this sort of astral projection shape again, because we get to see Yoda in this movie. His astral projection, when they burn down the old tree of the Jedi where the book of the Jedi are stored, their religion is stored, and we see that there's interaction between Yoda and Luke Skywalker, and that was nice. It was nice to see that Yoda is so powerful that it can literally change the weather and create a lightning that strikes the tree and it burns. But luckily, we get to see that at the end, Rey, she took the books. We see that in a little glimpse of the movie at the end, where Finn opens a drawer or something, and we see the book stacks there. So the hinting that Rey probably went to the tree and took them before Luke wanted to destroy everything and let the Jedi die with him. And it was Yoda that reminded him, pass on what you have learned. And this is also another point which I didn't mention before. It really bothered me that they showed Luke as a coward, grumpy coward, that because he failed with his nephew, he just withdrew. He never overcame his sorrow, whatever. And I think that was unnecessary. Took away everything that we love about the character that was positive, that believed his father could be turned, that he was supposed to be the most powerful Jedi. So yeah, those are the problems that I have with this movie. The first three movies weren't perfect. They became really successful because they deal with that sort of eternal question and eternal battle of the men, intending men and women, that rise from nothing and confronts life, the pain of life, the sorrow of life, the difficulties, and we try to rise above the typical hero journey, the mythical journey of the man that wants to elevate himself, get a light and succeed in fighting the demons, all the fears, and elevate himself. And that's what was resonating a lot in the previous movies. And all the characters sort of achieved that. Han Solo redeems himself, and Luke Skywalker comes from nothing and becomes the most powerful Jedi, and even Darth Vader from the dark gets turned to the light again. And concluding the trilogy in a most wonderful way, positive way of winning and bringing new peace. So even though it's always nice to see a new take on an old trilogy, but by recreating the old, they basically starting again this loop again. Like there was peace for a little bit, and then the bad guys they rise again. So we need to create new good guys, and we see that in this movie when there are a lot of subplots, especially the one where Finn and Sarah go to the casino to try to find this code breaker that is supposed to shut down the shield from the dreadnought, and that whole plan doesn't work. And it seems that it's just there so that we can see that there are orphan kids on this planet which they're abused and they are force sensitive, and it ties at the end of the movie where we see this kid looking at the sky and being force sensitive, and we know that in the future they will make more movies with those kids coming from nothing, like Anakin Skywalker, so that the force it's in everyone, not just in the bloodline of few selected. And I understand why they do that. They want to make it more inclusive for everyone so that everyone can be a force bearer kind of thing. But it takes away from the meaning again of the previous trilogy. And yeah, and then again, that subplot is totally misused, because at the end, the codebreaker doesn't do nothing. They destroy the dreadnought in a totally different way. The General Haldo, this sort of hinting. I don't know what to think of that. Even though I love the fact that nowadays they put more effort in creating female character that are strong, but they overdo this. They overdone this in this movie. They created this character, and it was nice to see this actress from the Jurassic Park movie. I liked her in the Jurassic Park. I enjoyed seeing her here again. But they painted her hair purple so she could stand out completely, hinting at this sort of like social justice warrior kind of thing, of being completely inclusive, and even hinting at the possibility of a romantic connection between her and Leia, which I think was totally overdone. For me personally, I saw that part of the movie when the General Aldo sacrificed herself in just hyper jumping her ship into the fleet of the New Order, and also that was totally unnecessary, because if they could have done that already, why nobody thought of that in the first place? And also that whole like tension between Bo and the General Haldo, where she kept her plan from Bo, her plan of sending the last rebels on these small ships to the nearby planet without telling him, and therefore forcing Bo to create a secondary plan of trying to send Finn and Sarah to the Las Vegas of the space and get this code breaker that in the end didn't work, endangering even more the whole thing, while she could have just told the truth, because there was no reason. There was no reason not to mention that that was the plan. There was nothing, even if Bo is a trigger happy, there was nothing wrong in saying like, hey, we are loading up those ships and that's what we're going to do. If you want to do something, actually buy us some time, like you did in the beginning, like when Bo does this sort of prank phone call. So the movie is always conflicting with itself, and that's probably the worst part. I don't know many worst parts there are in this movie. I thought I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the visual and everything, and then the more I thought about it, the more I saw the way they treated the character, and I got more and more disappointed. I'll probably watch it again, but the thing that bothered me the most was the way they did the send-off to all the main characters. All the main characters of the old characters now are dead. We're not gonna see them in the same fashion. They had the chance to send them off in the most epical ways. I mean, if I was the director, I would have used Luke Skywalker to do a scene similar to the Matrix in the third Matrix, and just show how powerful Luke Skywalker really is with his force and everything, which we never really see here. We just see some stone lifting, but we don't see nothing more, and that's really a missed chance. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little like exchange or rant. I'm looking forward to hear what you thought about it, and yeah. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do in the last of this new trilogy. I'm really not so interested anymore. The characters Ray and Finn, they don't interest me as much as they did in The Force Awakens. Actually, now their role is even, you know, it just, yeah, as you can see, I sort of used all the steam. The disappointment is kicking in even stronger. I just wish they did it differently, and now cannot be redone. You know, they used the chance, and now we have to live with the fact that they destroyed the value of the old trilogy. That's it. So yeah, but go to see the movie, judge for yourself, and I'm curious to see what you think. See you next time, and Happy New Year.